Welcome, this is Pine Leaf Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the news at LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And tonight we have with us Draculetta,
Hello, everybody.
Sithrith,
Hello.
Etheros,
Hey.
and Andang.
Hey, everybody.
And tonight we have the review episode for Update 14, The Paths of the Dead. But we'll first begin with the game news, which includes that on Monday, this coming Monday, which would be August 4th, the LOTRO servers will be down for the morning due to maintenance. I'm sure that gets you all excited.
So excited.
That'll be from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. server time. And just in case you said, okay, I'll play DDO instead, DDO is getting a patch at that same time.
But you can visit LotraPlayers.com or be listening to this podcast, which is probably the most likely thing.
Yes. Now, the only other thing that we have is, for the game news, are the store sales. Draculetta, what's on sale this week?
Free sample of the week is a random relic pack. Use coupon code RRP67. RRP67, and as always, you get one of those per account, so choose wisely. The sales are 25% off Runekeeper, Warden, character slots, and Slayer Deed Boost. Also, a note for the store that the Gift of the Valor is now in the store and will always be in the store. And that
Well,
is...
well, always is a strong word, but
Well,
yeah.
the way they word it
it's
is
back for good.
they say it's back for good. So the minute it comes out of the store, I want to see them try to explain why they took it out of the store when they say it's back for good. Because you know this has happened before with store stuff.
I have a theory. Well, with the new Minas Tirith Epic Battle that we're charging for in the expansion, we decided that players probably want to really enjoy those early levels where they don't have to pay for epic story content. And so we're removing the Gift of the Valar from the store to allow you to experience this wonderful leveling process in the free part of the epic story. That could be a reason.
Right.
So you're saying, Drac?
That is it for the store sales, actually. So it's not, I guess, a bad sale. Character slots, always good, especially with the Bjorning upcoming. If you're maxed out on your characters, you might want to pick one of those up. It's always good to see that on sale. Slayer Deed Boost, I do recommend those. Everybody loves to do all those Slayer Deeds. It always helps when you have that boost going. And, of course, Pine Leaf can expound upon the wonderful world of the Wardens.
Of course.
And why you should pick up the Warden class. And the Runekeeper class is also another great class. So not a bad sale this week. Could have been a better free sample this week, but...
Well, yes.
It's free.
But
we'll take what we can get. That's right. It's free. Free is free.
very well. And it looks like the other thing that's back is Hobnanigans.
Yeah, well...
Hobnobbigans.
Nobody cares about that,
and
Pine
still
Leaf.
nobody cares.
And still nobody cares.
But I would like to
Yes.
point out that for whatever reason in our show notes it says, grab a club and join the fun. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I'm guessing that's their wording.
That's turbine speak. I copied that word for word off the store page.
Very well. So grab a club and join the fun.
Don't join the fun.
Don't join the fun.
It's not
And
fun.
besides,
Club.
if you're listening to us afterwards, instead of on the live show, it'll be over by the time you listen to us anyway.
But whenever the next Hobnobbigans is, which seems to be happening like every week or maybe even every day at this point, don't join the next one. Just don't have fun with that one. Don't listen to Mist on that one.
I think it's monthly.
Way too often. Where are those treasure hunt events? Bring those every week.
Let's go to LOTRO Players News. And we'll begin with the weekly poll, which is, what is your favorite volume in the epic story?
Yes, Pineleaf. Players of our community were asked what is their favorite part of, or is their favorite volume, rather, of the epic story. And 42%, 47 votes, said Volume 1, followed not too closely, actually. 35% Volume 3, and then all the way down to 18% is Volume 2. I'm surprised Volume 3 isn't closer to Volume 1. Also surprised that Volume 2 has so many votes.
What do you mean it has so many votes? I mean, it has all those skirmishes.
Oh, Pineleaf gave away his vote.
Nostalgia is a powerful thing.
So clearly Pineleaf created like 19 other accounts for the Volume 2, but but pretty surprising results, I thought. I'm surprised Volume 3 isn't a little closer to Volume 1.
I voted for Volume 3, but only because of the Helm's Deep story. Otherwise, I feel like Volume 3 went on way, way, way too long.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have broken that up into more volumes, because by the end of Volume 3, it seemed kind of almost incoherent and not.
Well,
But I mean,
very-
Volume 1's the exact opposite, where it goes on like this whole plot line for the first 5 books, and then it goes on like this other tangent for another like 3 or 4, so Volume 1 is just like
That's
the
true.
opposite.
I voted Volume 3 because it's the only one of those volumes that doesn't have obnoxious traveling.
And that's why I voted for Volume 3,
That's
probably
a
the
good
main
point.
reason. Mm-hmm.
as for Volume 3, that one is all centered around Rohan and Isengard. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't see
Actually-
breaking it into more than one volume, because you start by heading south towards Rohan, and you are in Rohan. You're fine, and you're
Technically, the first part of it is about the Grey Company, and then it becomes about Rohan. So
yes,
That's
but
true.
the Grey
Could have
Company,
split
you
it
gather
after
the
you-
Grey Company to go to Rohan to help Aragorn.
Right, but then
It's
we leave them
kind of
for a
related,
long
but yeah.
time.
Atheros
you
and
end up-
Sithrith,
And
you're
then go on
arguing
that
with
whole
Pine
journey.
Leaf here.
Just saying.
I can see both points.
All right. Very well. That is the results of our poll. So we'll now head into Lotro Academy episode 97, which is about Lotro players. And Andang, you were involved in this show, weren't you?
Yes, Pine Leaf, I was actually. I was a guest on this, Brannick, and you guys asked me to guest host on Academy to basically give an update of what has been going on in the last year or so of Lotro players, and basically, give an update on everything that's going on. Just doing like the weekly thing on the news, we kind of get, caught up in just what's happening now. But it was nice to have like a big picture overview of what Lotro Players has been doing over the last year. So it was a lot of fun to go on there, and hopefully you guys enjoy the episode.
Very well, thank you. And Sithrith, what's your outfit of the week?
This week's outfit is called Lore Master of Irigian, and that's because this week I started questing in Irigian on my Lore Master. So obviously I had to put together a appropriate outfit for the event. So it uses a lot of the pieces from the Osdunhoth instance cluster, and it's very kind of muted golds and olives and burgundies, because that's kind of the color palette of Irigian.
All right, very well. And Lotro Players, of course, last week had their 25th episode. And what does orc craftsmanship have to do with that episode, Andang?
Pine Leaf, I can tell you that if you want to find out what orc craftsmanship has to do with that episode, you can listen to it on Lotro Players. We have a link in the show notes this episode of LOTRO Players News, episode 58, where you can click on that and find out why it's titled Orc Craftsmanship.
That is a plug
You don't
right
remember,
there.
do you?
That is a
I
plug.
don't. But you can find out by going there and finding out.
And does orc craftsmanship have anything to do with the grand stairs? Yes.
Yes.
Maybe, but we had a lot of fun going on the grand stairs. But seriously, Pineleaf, stop asking me why the title is. I don't remember a week later. Come on.
All right, very well. We had part 3 of the family line story, which was discussing refugees.
Yes, this is the amazing Rohan roleplay series that's been going on now for, this is the 3rd week, and it's getting better and better, and I recommend everybody check it out. It's like we've said before, it's not often that you get roleplay in some of the later areas in LOTRO, so very exciting.
All right, very well. And we also have, of course, in addition to some prose, which we just spoke of, we also have our weekly poetry. And I'm trying to see, I guess he wrote it himself.
Yeah, he did. He has a poem waiting for you, Pineleaf.
He has a poem waiting for you. And this is about our favorite little skulker.
Okay, that's a word for him.
Are there any other ones?
Yes. Forever alone. Alone on my in a dark cave, bound by my precious, a worshipper, a slave, a shadow, a white, a raise to be. Remembering the past, my life is a memory. Thinking of times gone when I was free in the depths of a town with no tree. Living in misery, I forgot my name, awaiting a savior who never came. No friends here, no reason to live, lost in my ways, nothing to give. But then one day, Bagginses came, stole my precious, played a game, lied to us, we hates it, ran from us, we hates it. Now my precious is forever gone. Alone I am, alone on my own.
I'm sorry, Peter Jackson, but Pineleaf is not available. He's part of our show. I'm sorry. I know Andy Serkis has a throat problem, but Pineleaf is actually busy. He's our host. I'm sorry. He can't come on.
I had to mute myself because I was laughing.
That was awesome, Pineleaf.
Especially when he started talking about Bagginses.
Indeed.
Oh, goodness.
All right. So we went from prose to poetry. Now we'll head into music. And Andang, what's the LOTRO music this week?
Yes, well, this week the video highlight does feature some music, and it actually talks about, or rather, shows some of the amazing, one of the amazing bands in LOTRO, and they're actually playing some great Skyrim music, and it's one of the best arrangements in game that I've heard of this song. So if you're a fan of Skyrim, I recommend checking this out because it's really cool to hear it in the LOTRO music system. It sounds pretty different, but still very familiar.
All right. Thank you very much. That takes care of our LOTRO Players news. So it's now time to go to news beyond LOTRO. And we will begin with a panel about the entire Hobbit panel video from the SDCC 2014 concerning the Battle of the Five Armies. What's this all about?
Yes, this is the San Diego Comic-Con panel that the Hobbit had, where one of the press that got invited there put up a video about it, and it is pretty amazing. warning that there is a little bit of language and adult themes discussed. But if you're a fan of the Hobbit films, even remotely, if you like them, I recommend checking this out. It's very cool to hear the actors and Peter Jackson and even Stephen Colbert, the host of the panel, talking about Lord of the Rings. It's pretty cool, and I recommend everybody check it out.
And it looks like we also have a trailer.
Yes, the teaser trailer for The Hobbit was released during the panel, and Draculetta actually put a write-up about it, so I'll let him give his first impressions first.
Yeah, it was released to that panel, and then later on Monday, after Comic-Con was over, they released it on their Twitter for everybody. Kind of a brief little trailer. You see, kind of they're going to shape up to where you see it's going to be a lot of battles. Of course, the name is Battle of the Fire Army, so that would make sense. But the only thing that really surprised me about the trailer was there was and this is going to be a spoiler for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. So I'm warning you now, there are spoilers. You see a brief glimpse of the eye, which I was surprised they showed that in the trailer.
Oh, I must have missed that.
Also,
It goes by very, very. It's about in the middle of the trailer, and it's only there for probably half a second. And I was just really shocked that was actually in the trailer. I didn't figure you would see that until maybe the end of the movie.
yeah, this seemed to be a fairly spoilerific teaser. It involved, spoiler alert, Gandalf on the ground wounded or knocked out or something with Galadriel. Once again, having some sort of romantic thing that's going on. Although in the film, in the earlier Hobbit film, it turned out not to be anything really. So hopefully that's the same thing here. But yeah, there were a lot of spoilerific things. The thing that stood out for me was war goats.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up the war.
Because
just gonna bring that up.
If Peter Jackson can do it, then I think that LOTRO can do it. Come on.
I mean, we already have We already have goats as a mount. Like Turbine called that way ahead in advance. Yeah, we just need to,
So,
strap on
Peter
goat
Jackson
armor.
got that from LOTRO?
But there aren't war goats in LOTRO, finally.
Well, no,
But there are goat
riding
mounts.
goats at least.
Yeah, but they don't go into battle. I want a battle goat.
Oh, well.
Don't know well me, Pineleaf. Go, you're closest to Turbine. Go to their offices and demand battle goats.
Right onto
Just
Seminole
like, you get a
Fields on your
picture-
war goat.
We get a picture of Pineleaf, just standing by himself out front of the Turbine offices with a big picket sign. War goats now.
Why would I want a war goat?
I don't know.
And then parentheses on the sign, there's several thousand podcast listeners that support me. I'm not standing alone.
Hey,
Somehow, I don't think that there are several thousand podcast listeners who are screaming for war goats. It's not going to be like that trailer for the
You don't know. You can't hear
free-to-play.
okay, if LOTRO Reporter could get Endplay, we can get war goats.
That's right.
Yeah.
We demand
New
war
campaign,
goats.
go.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
What?
Oh, come on, finally, if you have to admit, a war goat would just be epic.
Epic fail.
Oh.
No, we already have one of those, and that's epic battles.
And allies before that.
Mhm.
So, does anybody else have any other thoughts on the trailer?
I haven't
I-
actually watched it.
I would like to just finish off by saying that I don't know how they're going to get all these battles together and keep it all fairly coherent for the average moviegoer. But that's
Yeah.
just my 2 cents. I think it's going to be epic and amazing because Peter Jackson does battles really, really well. So I'm going to go just to see those. But it'll be interesting to see if the story stays together at the same time with that many scenes.
Now, the other one where I really wonder whether or not they could keep the story together is in the Shadows of Mordor. Andang, what's happening over there?
You are the master of segues, finally.
That was great, Pineleaf. Yes, basically, and this is very questionable lore again, where basically, apparently, there's orcs have fears, and they have fears of things like bumblebees and ghouls and other things that some orcs probably should not have fears of. Um, it's an interesting concept, I guess. Kind of, maybe. I don't know. I'm not too excited about this fear system where apparently you can scare orcs and then chase them down and add them to your army, basically. Shadow of Mordor. I don't know, but on the plus side, there are some big names involved in Shadow of Mordor, and that's one of the articles that one of the other articles I put out this week. And I looked on IMDb and some other sites to get an idea of where these what actors were involved. Turns out Andy Serkis is actually voicing Gollum, which he doesn't do in that many games. I believe he's only done that in one other game, which was the Battle for Middle-earth series. So that's kind of surprising that he's actually involved in this. Also, Troy Baker is the voice of Talion, and he's voiced several major gaming characters, especially recently, including Booker from Bioshock Infinite, Deslin in Infamous, which is the main protagonist there, and the Joker in Arkham Origins, and also Joel in The Last of Us. That's like every major game from the last couple of years he's voiced a major character in. And so that gives me great confidence that at least his performance should be great in this game. Alistair Duncan is the voice of Celebrimbor. He's voiced various things in Mass Effect and one of the main characters in Infinity Blade. Laura Bailey is the voice of Talion's wife, and she's also was infamous as Fetch. She was in Diablo. She was Alice in Batman Origins, and she was even Rivera in Halo 4, and Lady Comstock in Bioshock Infinite. And if you've played Bioshock Infinite, then you know just how good that voiceover was. And Nolan North is another one of the main people that are involved, and he's actually voicing the Black Hand, which a lot of people are thinking is the sort of tangible boss that'll be at the end of the game, where he's like the villain that we can actually defeat, and as opposed to Sauron, where we can't really do that. But this is kind of the villain that we can defeat, it seems. And he's most known for his voice as Drake in the Uncharted series. He's voiced Desmond in Assassin's Creed, and he's voiced elves in previous Lord of the Rings games, which kind of surprised me. So he's already had at least, I think it was like 5 or 6 different Lord of the Rings games he's voiced elves in. So he definitely has quite a backlog of voices. He was even the Cores in Portal 2, which were absolutely amazing and hilarious. Christian Kamisha is the writer and director for Shadow of Mordor, and he was one of the main writers in Red Dead Redemption. Michael Forgy is the executive producer, and he was also the executive producer for Gears of War 2. Gary Scheinman is the composer, and he's composed everything from Bioshock to the classic 1983 theme song for the A-Team. So that would be an interesting song in Shadow of Mordor. But this is an amazingly good cast. I've seen several blogs that have said like this is the most all-star team that has been for a video game that they could find. Like major press that were saying that. So the people that are involved in the story of this game seem to be big names. That doesn't guarantee that the story will be good. It doesn't even guarantee that the performance will be good, but it really increases the likelihood. And so this has gotten me really excited for Shadow of Mordor, just to see what kind of story that they have with this game.
Very well, thank you, Andang. Now we'll head back into The Hobbit. In this case, we're going to go and play some Legos. Draculetto, what's this all about?
Well, also at San Diego Comic-Con, they announced there is going to be a new Lego collector set that is released, and this is not just your little average Lego set. It is an 866 piece set that features 5 different minifigures: Bilbo, Balin, Dwalin, and Gloin. Also, there is a secret door, of course, because if you're going to go fight Schmog, you need to go in through the secret door. There is an Arkenstone in the set as well, and of course some gold nuggets. It's going to be released later in the fall, and it's going to set you back $129.
Now, I suspect that the guys at Brothers Workshop had an advanced copy of this because it looks like they must have used some of these pieces for a video they did recently.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure they must have
I
It
I
was
remember
actually-
a interview from a while ago. He does get some pieces from Lego ahead of time, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, since this one was posted at the Lego official site, that particular video, then it was commissioned by Lego.
And I also put a picture in the article that I wrote up for it. The smog looks amazing. It's a giant red dragon. It just dwarfs all the other little figures. So.
Yeah, I
Most
haven't
dwarves?
seen
Yes.
anything. I haven't seen anything like the dragon in this set in Legos before. It's really
Yeah,
cool looking.
It's pretty amazing. So if you're a Lego fan, Lego collector, definitely try to get this one. And if this is like all the other previous sets they've released, it's going to be really, really hard to come by. And if you can find it at retail for $129, you're going to do good getting it because I've seen the other Hobbit sets go on eBay for $500-600. So
Jeez.
there are some serious Lego collectors out there that really want these higher quality sets that they're putting out.
Oh, yes. All right. Finally, we have a Necromancer Above All Part 3. And this is once again, is telling us the history of Sauron.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. Oh, yes. In case there is anyone out there who's listening to this doesn't know the relationship.
They sure do now.
They sure do now, yes.
But yeah, it's a great article. Be sure to check it out. He does a great job each and every time, so I recommend everybody check it out if you're curious at all about the lore.
Very well. Now that concludes the News Beyond LOTRO, but that's not the end of our show because today we have a main topic, and this main topic is a review of Western Gondor and Update 14. And we'll hand things over to Andang to conduct this part of the show.
Thank you, Pine Leaf. Oh, this is heavy. So, this is the Western Gondor review. Just a reminder that this is basically what we do every time there's a major content update, and we will be comparing this to other paid-for zones, so like Wildermore and things like that, not necessarily towards something like Update 13, and definitely not towards expansions. So with that out of the way, I'm going to pass it back over to Pineleaf, who, spoiler alert, is going to be giving an overview or summary of the epic story because he does it so well each and every time.
Yes, and yes, remember that this will be full of spoilers. So if you don't want to hear in advance the epic story, then I suggest skipping ahead about 5 minutes and catch us up there. We will begin when you receive a letter from Eowyn. Since this is a new volume, you of course start out with a summons to a particular person who is going to kick off the volume. You do not start off where you started off previously as you do between books of the same volume. So
and we don't have to go back to Galadriel, I must say, which is a big, big plus already for this story.
It would have been silly to go back to Galadriel for this.
No, we go back to Elrond.
With our luck, we'd go all the way back to Lalia.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Please no.
You get called by Eowyn, who informs you that Aragorn has decided to go through the paths of the dead and that you need to find out what's been happening there because apparently some boys were playing around the paths of the dead and one of them got lost. So you are expected to go there, do the rescue on it, come back, and once you do that, she then asks you to go to the other side and to head into Gondor.
Yeah, I believe you find out during that attempt to rescue the kid that apparently some of the dead are being a bit hostile.
Yes, that some of the dead are being hostile, that some of them left the paths of the dead, and that the ones that remain have turned to be quite a bit hostile. Well, some of them are just floating around doing nothing, but others are being quite hostile, and you have to fight them during the time.
I would like to point out, though, that Eowyn technically did not know that Aragorn made it through the Paths of the Dead safely, and so I think that she had in the back of her mind such grief that she had to just kill off somebody else, and so that's why she sent us into the Paths of the Dead, just so that we could get killed off. That's what she's doing there, I'm telling you. And so, me and Eowyn are no longer friends on Facebook.
Ouch.
Right.
Hurts.
You then head through the Paths of the Dead and head into Western Gondor, where you talk with the steward of the first of the three. I don't think they gave quite what you would call these. Will they be considered to be
Regions.
county? Yeah, the regions, provinces, counties, or whatever you would call that, because the entire area of Western Gondor sounds like would probably be a principality. So would these be duchies or counties or what? I don't know.
Don't think it matters too much.
Thankfully, we don't have to worry about the social structures of Gondorian kingdoms on this podcast too often, finally.
Well, yes, I guess you have a point on that. But in any case, you head off, speak with the steward, since of course the actual lord of the area has gone off towards Minas Tirith in order to help with the battle there. And the idea there is you try to sort out things that are going on there. So you go from this town to another town in the next area where you help someone with some deliveries. And around this time, when you're first run into these people, you find out that this place is overrun with corsairs. And that the corsairs are running rampant all throughout the region, and they become your major villain for this particular area. I know this is a big, huge shock. And once you deal with that, you go to the next area, and eventually you get sent to a refuge of the elves, or former refuge of the elves, where the elves have their secondary havens. You could almost call it a backup for the Grey Havens, just in case something happens to the Grey Havens. So it's their backup havens, though since they're not active at the moment, the elves don't for the most part don't live in that area. In fact, they live underground beneath the havens. Don't ask me why.
It sure did look cool, though, because it reminded
Oh.
me out of the Silmarillion, some of the stuff there. That was cool.
All right, very well. You therefore go down into the place where the elves live, and you speak with them, and they eventually send you to the daughter of the Prince of Dol Amroth. Since, of course, the Prince of Dol Amroth, Imra here, has gone out to Minas Tirith to take the bulk of his swan nights out in that way. Though there are a few here that are remaining to help her ladyship. And you go speak with her, And she asks you to do some research on Gondorian history. And the idea there is to give you loads of backstory of what's going on in Gondor, just in case you haven't read all the appendices to The Lord of the Rings.
Just in case.
Just in case. So there you learn about history. And one of the subplots they have in here is that she has been betrothed to Boromir,
To a cousin.
her first cousin.
Yeah, there were
And
multiple
talk about
reasons
that.
why this was awkward. First of all, the whole cousin thing. Second of all, the whole spoiler alert dead thing.
And also, apparently, nobody wanted this match except Denethor. Denethor was the only one that was like, yes, this is a good thing. This is going to happen. And everybody else was just like,
Yeah.
well, I guess you're the steward.
I
so
think
we
he
can't
wanted her
marry
to
you."
sing me a song.
Oh,
Yeah. The reason Denethor wanted the match is because he had a dream that she was going to be marrying a king at Minas Tirith. Or actually, I don't know if it was a king, but someone of very high stature. Of course, he assumes it was the steward's son. He doesn't know who she really marries at this point because that's something that you'd have to have read the appendices in order to know whom she marries in the end.
And Denethor does not have access to the appendices.
It would be funny though if we
believe,
return to this dream later, after Aragorn and Arwen are, married and stuff, and then there's like an awkward moment between them and her because she's like, I had a dream I'd married a Gondorian king. Just saying.
Well, no, she married.
Well,
You know who she marries, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I believe Imrahil had a similar dream too. They mention in the
Yeah, I think so.
he didn't try and force a marriage out of it, but
right, it sounds like he's not convinced it means Boromir.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas Denethor's like, yeah, it's totally my son, totally.
Well, because Denethor assumes that, I mean, what other kings are there anywhere in the region? And he's not even technically a king, but that's an entirely different matter.
Right. Well, and also, Denethor may or may not be a total narcissist, but yeah.
Well, yes, there is that little detail.
little
Therefore,
one.
after you hear all this history and go back to her ladyship, you then tell her well, I don't know whether she considered it to be good news or bad news, that Denethor will not be able to marry her due to a little problem with death.
A
not
little
that's why I mean
problem.
It's a
Boromir,
little
yes.
problem. A trifling matter.
Yeah, trifling matter there. And at that point, she decides to recall the Swan Knights and bring them back to the city. And therefore, you have to go out, recall the knights, and do a few instances in order to bring them back. And during which time, when you're bringing back the last of the Swan Knights, you face a Nazgul that we actually managed to chase off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised about that.
apparently
I was like,
we've
oh,
reached-
wait, we're going to fight this?
Yeah, out of
It's
curiosity.
actually
I thought we'd
kind
have to search in the troll shots for it again.
It's actually a kind of milestone for us because this is the first time we've fought off a Nazgul at full power. Because
Mm-hmm.
most of the time before it, they've usually been weakened in some way, and this time
Or
we
they
pretty
run
much-
off at the last minute and we don't actually do anything.
Well, yeah.
they just sort of
Well-
walk off.
Of
They
course,
probably-
they exile back to Mordor.
Let's be honest though, Atheros, they're probably sleep deprived because they know that ring is getting closer to Mordor. So they're really not at full power. I mean, there's some sleep deprivation there.
Okay then.
I don't think Nazgul sleep.
You know, Pineleaf, I don't think
You don't
that you know everything about Nazgul.
Well, yeah, I guess if they do sleep, they'll be in the daytime, though. That would be my guess.
They sure don't do much in the daytime if they don't sleep.
Right. So therefore, we chase off a Nazgul who is pretty much at full power. By the way, has anyone ever done that instance with the Fellowship version?
Nope.
Spridger tried it and failed miserably. It's actually pretty hard, it seems.
Did she try it alone or with a?
She
large
tried it with a group, and she failed pretty her group failed pretty miserably.
Oh, how many were in the group? Was it a full group or?
There were 5, I think, but it was still like way harder than harder than just another person.
Yeah, and I did it in a full fellowship too, and yeah, we lost it too. That guy is tough in a
Well, he's an
fellowship. I mean,
asshole.
he's like
He
tough
is an
solo,
asshole,
but
yeah.
it's like crazy hard in the
Mm-hmm.
fellowship version.
All right, very well. And once you do that and take care of the Nazgul, you get back to her latest ship, and that is where we end the epic story. So I presume that she will be sending us off to Peligir the next time we have an update. I don't know if she's going to be involved in that little interlude or not that we have in whether it's 14.2 or 14.3 or whenever they release that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure she'll be sending us out to Peligir for our next part of the epic story. But that will be in a few months. Ending.
Yes, finally. Thank you so much for your overview. You do a great job every single time, and so you get to do it again next time. Real quick though, I do want to say that it's nice to finally have knights in the game that are actually more competent than rangers. Like seriously, they feel like heroes. This is the first like NPC that I'm like, that is 100% a hero, and I really do like the way that Turbine's portraying them.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go on to our first question, which is, what is your favorite epic quest or moment in the epic story? And let's start with Sithith.
Give me a minute. Go on to someone else.
Okay, Atharos.
Well, there's like a few nice moments. I think that subplot is interesting. I'm not sure where they're going to go with it, but it's interesting. I think probably my favorite though is the session play, where you play as a dead person, and you get to watch Aragorn firstly like summon the dead to Erech, and then you can either see people accept the oath, or you can actually choose to go to the other group, the I believe they were called the Ruthless Dead, and they swear allegiance to Sauron's dead, which is cool to actually have a choice, even though you can just replay it. It's cool to have a choice in the session play because I think that's pretty unique. So
Yeah,
far.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Drac.
I have two favorite moments actually. My first, I think, would be when you go to Helion. I'm a big lore buff, and of course, I'm love elves, so that is just awesome that I get to actually walk around in there and see the ruins of that. And I also like that session play that Etheros was talking about with the Oathbreakers, and I like the choice where you can actually do it from both sides, which I did because I wanted to see if you could see it from the other side. So that's pretty amazing. They gave you the choice to do both sides if you wanted to.
All right. Anyone else have any other favorite moments from the epic?
I think that seems to be the
I
big
think
one.
that's the big one. Yeah, I mean, I love that session play as well. It was definitely definitely the standout point of this epic, and I think it was definitely meant to. All right, and this is the start of a new volume. Is it a good start? And let's start with Drac. If you're alive.
Of course he isn't. He's Dracula.
Exactly. All right, Atheros.
I think it's a decent start for a new volume. It's been a while, quite a long time since we've had a beginning of a volume, so I think maybe some of us have forgotten how slow burning they tend to be. So there isn't a whole lot that actually happens in terms of events. It's more, you can see they're sort of creating plot threads, and they're going to be leading towards something. The dead thing and Lothiriel's thing happening. Yeah, I think it's a good start. I'm curious just to see where it goes, but I think they've got a good start, foundation for the story they're building.
All right. Anybody have a differing opinion? Okay. Well, let's move on to side quests.
We're all so agreeable.
Indeed. Mist isn't here. Were there any side quests? Let's move on to side quests. Were there any side quests you didn't like? And let's start with Pine Leaf.
But any side quests I didn't like? Let's see. I can't think of any that stick in my mind.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because you always love the side quests. I don't know why I started with you on that one. Thalros, are there any side quests that you didn't like?
Um, speaking honestly, no. I mean, you get the usual kill X amount of creatures quests that aren't really that stimulating, but there aren't really any I'd say I disliked
What about the
at all.
stag?
Really. It was annoying trying to find the thing.
Yeah.
That was a pain, but that's kind of the whole point of
Well, I
it.
mean,
It was a bounty quest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that is
consider the
what-
bounties more of
Yeah.
an option, to be honest.
Yeah. It was annoying to find, but I was quite happy when I found it.
Okay.
So yeah, that was actually fun to try and do.
Yeah, and I'd say that's, it seems almost like a conscious shift, or maybe it was just they didn't have enough time, but there aren't the nothing quests anymore. Even the, kill this many enemies usually pop up when you're in a camp, when you're already on a quest that's fairly important. So it's like, alright, if you're a real hero, you can do this quest if you want to, but if not, then, you can decline it. It really feels like that they've trimmed the fat and streamlined the way that quests flow. And
Yeah.
There's a lot less
I know-
going back and forth, carrying messages to people.
Well, except
Mhm.
for that first town.
Yeah.
It was annoying going up and
Yeah.
down the city a couple of times.
I know.
But at least
well,
that's a
I've been
short
to-
distance.
I know I went to a couple of the enemy camps, I think south of Dalamroth, and both of those I was able to go to and do the quests there without being directed or having a quest direct me to it. So there's definitely a more, they're not as linked or chained together as much as they used to be in, I think, from Isengard onwards. So that's definitely an improvement, I think.
Actually, I
Mhm.
did remember a quest. There is a quest in the first town where you have these NPCs you're supposed to talk to. And they're not marked in any way so that it's obvious that these are the
Oh,
PCs.
yeah.
That one is annoying.
Yeah,
because
but
finding
That
the
is
right
really-
NPCs.
I mean, even on though, that's kind of annoying, but on a level of annoying quests, that's pretty minor compared to previous
Yeah,
areas.
yes, compared to
It's not a
some
balance
other-
camp.
Well, yeah, it's certainly not on par on the annoyance of some other.
I mean,
Once
that's good that's the most annoying quest that we can think of. I mean, that's definitely props to Turbine.
Oh no,
Um,
there's one more annoying than that.
Okay, Drac.
Which is
There's a quest where they send you into Lothbel that after it's been taken over by Corsairs, and you have to go into like a bunch of the different houses, and there are just way too many mobs that
Yeah.
spawn, way too many quick to be inside and fight them.
Yeah, if
Well,
you're
yeah,
on
I had
if
no
you're on the
trouble with those
wrong
houses.
class, that can be very
Well,
challenging.
you're a warden, you wouldn't have problems.
If it can be very challenging on lighter classes for sure. Because I noticed it was fairly challenging on my champion, so I can imagine what it would be like on a light class.
it's a
know,
bit
I
of a
remember
surprise
playing-
using Ring of Fire in there. It pulled a lot more mobs than I was expecting.
Yeah, that happened to me on my.
I think I
quest
didn't have
too.
a problem because there was quite a few people doing that quest around the same time I
Yeah.
was, and so there was a lot of. I actually had the opposite problem where there weren't enough mobs because there were too many people killing them too quickly, so I had to go back through the houses again.
I think the main problem is on that dog quest, there's one where there's like 3 or 4 dogs that are all together, and it
Yep,
makes it
that's-
pretty hard.
The worst part of that quest is
Mhm.
the dog part of it.
I don't know because I just remember that I don't remember them spawning very quickly because by the time I got to the end of it and finished it, I went out and there was rarely a respawn there. I was wondering if the things were instanced because I'd never seen so many respawns.
Well, you got lucky, my friend.
You got lucky, Pine Leaf.
Mhm.
And it's not an issue with respawning, it's just an issue with the way that the enemies were grouped together, I think, in the house.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just too small of an area for that many.
Okay,
Mhm.
but yeah, as you said, I was a warden, so I didn't know it was a problem.
I don't know if you're going to count deeds in with this, specifically the deed where you're meant to look for Gondorian treasure chests, but there are 18 of them,
Yeah.
and in my whole time questing, I found 7.
I think I'm at 6 or 7 myself.
But I mean,
I didn't
Yeah.
even know that there was a deed.
the thing is, that's definitely a deed and something that's for those players that want to go way above and beyond. So I don't consider that part of the main quests of things.
No, but God, those are well hidden.
I'm
They
glad I'm
are,
not the
yeah.
only one that has only found about 7 of them then.
Yeah, it's a tough quest. I found like 1 or 2, and then I'm like, nope, not gonna do this. That's way too hard. All right, well, so that's good that there's not too many quests that we don't like. I think that's the first update talks or update review that we've had that. So that's definitely good news for the game. So let's see here. What is your favorite side quest? And let's start
Chicken.
with Sithris.
Well, there
I
we
couldn't
go.
hold it in.
If you want to explain it, Sithris.
Okay, there's a bounty quest out of Calimbel, I think it is.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And it's like people have been complaining about missing chickens. And basically you just track it to this weird random single guy in this camp, like in the mountains. He's got this like wood palisades all around, and like he's got a tent, and there's just tons of chickens in his camp. He's not even like eating these chickens. He just has all these chickens. And you're like looking around, he's not there, and you're like, well, this is weird. And then he comes up and he's like, chickens, chickens, chickens. These are my chickens now. You can't have them. And then you have to kill him. And he's like an elite or something.
He wants the chickens.
And it's just hilarious. It's the best quest.
All right, I think that's definitely the best quest on everyone's opinion. Are there any other quests that stood out to anybody as really good quests?
I actually enjoyed. Well, there's a couple like whole quest lines. I would say the one in Jinadab with the whole brother being in love with his brother's wife.
That's my favorite quest, I think. Yeah,
which is a bit
good.
kind of dark, actually.
It is.
But it's really well written, though.
It is.
If you actually read all the quest text and then read the guy's note, you're just like, aw.
Oh.
And
Well,
then
I don't think we said "aw" like that.
How sad. Yeah.
And you expect it because I think a lot of these stories in like LOTRO, they tend to end better or at least happier. But this one is just like, nope, he dies.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty dark.
The ending there.
There's maybe not similar in tone or anything, but there's a quest in Dol Amroth as well where it's like there's this like poet guy and he's like, oh yeah, I'm totally in love with that girl over there. You should like help me write a poem about her. And she's like super training hard to be this stonemason apprentice, and she's like super cool and like super strong and stuff. And he's like, no, I can't use any like strong bold words about it. That's not right for a lady. And like then finally he writes the poem and you give it to her and she's like, this is dumb. Help me be a stonemason.
Yeah,
She
pretty
doesn't
much.
care about that stuff at
Yeah.
all.
And then you help her, and that was cool. Where you just like ignore the guy that had the issues until later.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
So then you like help her bring up the stone, and then she gets the stonemason apprenticeship.
Unfortunately, I
They're
haven't
good at
done
putting
any of
this
the
kind of,
stuff
like,
in Dol
twists
Amroth yet.
on- Yeah, they're good on putting like twists on how you'd expect it to go,
Mm-hmm.
but then it ends up going somewhere a bit different from that. That was pretty.
And
good.
they don't do it often enough to where you expect it to go the other way too. That's definitely a plus.
Right.
There was also that one quest in at Helland with the dying elf.
Oh, that's
So
Yes.
I'm actually labeled dying elf. That's great.
just
What's interesting on that one is that quest is where I hit level 100. So
Wow.
it's like, I just bring them up, the quest ends, and it's hard for you to celebrate level 100 because of the poignant nature of that quest.
yeah. Like, oh, you just helped me die. Here's a level.
Yeah.
All right. There are several notable NPCs in this update, but one stands out in particular, Jajax. And Ethelros, if you want to start talking about him, some of the things that stood out.
Well, do you want me to explain his whole
Yes.
storyline? Okay, so Jajax is a Corsair, pretty much. He first turns up in, what's the place called? Lothbel, something like that?
Lothgobel.
Yeah. Him and his buddies took over the town and presumably killed a bunch of people and sacked their homes, were drinking in the tavern. And you meet him, and he's strangely polite and educated in a sense.
And has you do a drinking contest.
Yes. You end up having some sort of negotiation where if you stop killing his men, he and his men will leave that town and leave it alone. And yeah, in order for him to even like negotiate with you at all, you have to win a drinking contest against the drinking champion Corsair, which was interesting, getting drunk for the sake of politics, but you know.
And there's actually this character. I don't want to like ruin people who haven't seen Star Wars, the Clone Wars, but spoiler alert for that show. This character feels a lot like one of the pirates off of there, where the Jedi in this episode actually get involved in a drinking contest with that Corsair. And then he ends up being like this good guy, and it goes this whole thing. So, not saying Turbine copied off of them, but it's obnoxiously similar, and that's definitely for the better because I love that character in that show, and I love Jajax in this game.
Yeah. So you eventually do come to an agreement, and then it turns out that because he agreed to it, that's something that the Corsair culture apparently frowns upon, and one of the rival captains with him ends up killing his entire army of men. And then
Jajax's army.
Yes, Jajax's army. So he's pretty much on his own at that point, and he ends up asking you for help because he has no one else, and he ends up becoming a lot continually less Corsair-y, I suppose you could say. I think at one point he
Corsair.
even ends up dressing as a Gondorian man.
Yeah, he
He
Yeah,
does.
ends
that's
up
really funny.
in Dol
Well,
Amroth.
trying to at
Well,
least.
he
Yeah.
kind of, yeah,
So-
he puts a cloak over, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I put on this lady's cloak. That's how this works, right? This is good disguise, right?"
Yeah. So here's
Yeah.
my question for you guys. Turbine mentioned that we're going to have a very different fellowship in this volume. Is he one of the first members of the fellowship, or is he just a side character?
I
He-
hope he is. That would be amazing.
I think he is going to reoccur, but he isn't actually. He doesn't appear in the epic, so I don't think he's actually going to be that involved so much. He'll probably turn up in some sort of side quest line, though.
All
But
right.
he is very cool.
Indeed. All right. Anyone else have any other favorite side quests?
That merchant.
Yeah.
It seems like old men
You mean the
in
obnoxious
LOTRO
one?
tend to be either helpless or incredibly obnoxious. And
Yep.
That guy in Tadrent, I think it was Tadrent,
Mhm.
is one of the most obnoxious old men I've heard in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
he's
he
one
was
of those
voiced
LOTRO
accordingly.
quest NPCs who criticize you constantly and yet tell you to do things.
Mhm.
Go get some mushrooms, but don't give me that big orange mushroom because that's poisonous. You
He's
didn't know that. You're
he's
an idiot.
he's basically the embodiment of all the rangers into one NPC,
Oh,
Yeah.
good grief.
and that's not a good thing.
That guy's so annoying.
Yeah, I felt bad for that lady that runs that town.
Oh, also,
She
I
has to
keep-
live
I keep-
there.
Yeah, I keep thinking of other questions. The one in I can't remember the name of it now. I think it was like Minas something or other, where there's a drunk Corsair and you have to get him more drunk just to get him to talk about the plans that.
Oh
they
yeah,
have.
that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ends up
That's
taking a whole
near
barrel of
Shadwell.
ale just to get him to. Yeah, that was fun.
hmm
All right, and we've kind of already talked about this, but I'm going to hit on it again. The side quests have changed to focus even more on story. Do we like this change of this kind of streamlined quest structure? Do we all agree yes?
Yep.
I like that they've focused on story, but I also like that they've kind of refined the mechanics of how they work. Because I think before, in like the Rohans, they had a strong story as this, but the mechanics would like two chain together, so you couldn't really repeat them very enjoyably.
Yeah.
And I suppose Drac could say whether it's changed for the better since he's had like 3 characters go through it now.
Yeah, I think it has. It's I think you kind of get more involved. At least I felt, you know, like you said, is going through with 3 characters at the same time. I kind of feel like I'm more involved in the story now, and it's not just go fetch this, go kill this.
I
It's
definitely agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
there's been some side quests in the past that have had good stories, but they're not compelling enough to make me want to read them every time I quest, or even the first time I quest them through them necessarily. I'll just skim them. Whereas these side quests in Gondor, pretty much every quest I read the whole quest text.
But let's be honest, that's just me subconsciously, like, in your mind coming off because, I recommend that every single time at the end of
The
my
quest
series.
text.
Read the quest text, people. Alright, so yeah, I definitely think it's a change for the better. What do you think of the return of the bounty system? I think it's mostly positive. What do you guys think?
I'm glad they brought back a system like this that's just sort of random quests off to the side that don't really relate to the main storyline. They just sort of, here's something that's going on. Why don't you look into it? And it just has a lot of opportunities for some usually amusing quests, but there's a couple of serious ones that come from it. But yeah, I think it's great to actually have that sort of things that don't. Not every quest has to relate to some big overarching storyline. They can sometimes just be a little thing that's going on, and you do that quest and it's done. I think there haven't been as many of those in recent questing areas as they used to be. So I'm glad that they have a few more of them now.
And I was surprised too, because normally I don't like quests where you kind of have to go out on your own and just kind of figure it out. But for some reason, with the bounties, like with the stag, I kind of liked having to explore to try to find it, which actually shocked me, because normally I'd rather just have give me a quest arrow so I know where I'm going, so I don't have to waste my time. But this, I was actually enjoying just running around, looking at the scenery. I was searching for those silly treasures while I was doing that, so that gave me an excuse to do that too.
Do you think you'd still enjoy this in, say, something like the North Downs, where it doesn't have that totally new type of landscape and the better quest design, I guess?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I think a lot has to do with the landscape in the area that it's in.
Yeah, it just simply doesn't look as good in the North Towns.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Alright, well, I think that does it for side quests. Let's move on to landscape, which has definitely been one of the most talked about points of Update 14, as we are entering into a totally new society. So, what are your thoughts, and this is a very general question, about the landscape with Western Gondor? And let's start with the Landscape King, Athelros.
Well, I kind of feel like I've talked about this update's landscape a lot, from the preview videos we did to previous episodes of the news. It's just, I can't really think of anything to say that I haven't said about previous landscapes, but it's just as true now as it was then. It is some of the best work they've done, and yeah, I just can't think of anything else that's more interesting than that.
Okay, anybody else have anything else to add on landscape?
My biggest complaint, I would say, is I think they kind of overuse the whole wing thing.
Yeah,
And the heads.
the heads
yeah,
is my main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my only.
I saw someone describe Dol Amroth as a wedding cake. It was just there's just too much frilly stuff, like the wings and heads and such.
Maybe I think they do go a little overboard, but I don't think it's so much that it bothers me that much.
Well, it's
Also.
certainly nothing new concerning representations of Gondor, because I tend to see it's not the first time I've seen overdoing it with the wings, so to speak. Some representations of Aragorn's crown are
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I think, even if you look outside of Dol Amroth, some of those like Callambel and Tadrent tend to aren't as big on the wings and heads as those, and those look really good actually. They're more subdued than Dol Amroth, and those I think are pretty much spot on.
Now, of course, you do have the usual annoyance when you're in hilly area of, all right, how do I get across this crazy ridge?
Yeah.
speaking of towns, actually, again, Morlad, I think that's the first town you go to, is pretty different actually from not just other zones in LOTRO, but the rest of the zones the rest of the towns in the zone. In the way it's sort of not flat on a field like a lot of the ones in Rohan and some of the ones in Gondor. It's sort of on a hill, and the roads sort of curve up towards it, towards the top, and then there's like a ruin on the top of it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting design because it's very narrow and sort of compact, and the houses feel like they're just sort of stacked on top of each other.
I just say I wouldn't want to live in that town during an earthquake.
Yeah.
Fair enough, Fine Leaf. All
But
right.
the other thing about that town is I'm wondering if there were some things that they were practicing for Minas Tirith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. That was the first thing I thought when I went in there. I'm like, they're giving you a preview of what they're going to try to do with Minas Tirith with this, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all I could think of when I was running up and down those hills.
Yeah, I think it'll be a
Good
little
thought,
different
Jake.
in color palette and some other things, but yeah, I think it'll feel a lot the same.
Yeah, style of winding streets, at least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, that does it about for landscape since we've talked about it a lot in previous shows. So let's move on to the new system with this update, which is the Essence system. I don't think any of us really know anything about this because, I mean, they really haven't implemented enough for us to really be able to talk about it. But what are your guys' thoughts on the system as we know it right now?
Essences drop a lot, but it's very hard to get anything to put them into, at least at lower levels.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's weird that they put essences that drop as soon as level 50 because there's not apparently anything for you to put the essences into until 95 in Gondor. So I don't know why that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I have
this
all these
seems
like essences on my level characters and nothing to do with them.
Yeah, it seems like a very rough first implementation. Like they have the low level drops, they don't have the gear for it yet and things like that. I can see probably where they're going with it is going to appeal quite a lot to the min maxers who just who love to have their sort of stats really fine tuned. I think this is going to be great for them. Personally, I just don't really give a fig either of what
Fig.
stat is or what level and stuff like that. But yeah, I can definitely see the appeal to those people who like that sort of thing.
I think
What
if
about a grape
the
that's a little smaller?
I think another main thing is if the essences were like bigger numbers. Because right now you have like 5 or 6 items on your gear now at least. And on these essences you only have 3 slots. And the numbers for those slots are about the same as the numbers that you'd find just for that particular item on your weapon. So I think, or your armor or whatever you're using. So I think it's actually not as strong as the normal armor. A few exceptions
Yeah.
I've seen maybe, but I think in general it's not as powerful, and so why would you want it? I think the essences aren't quite powerful enough, and I wonder if
Well,
they were afraid to make them too powerful.
I thought that that there would be 1 or 2 base items. Don't the pieces of armor have at
It
least
depends
one
on
base
which piece of armor you get. I've found some that
Okay.
actually don't, which is a great detraction to them.
Mm.
Yes, but I think the ones that have it are usually the rarer pieces, or
Right.
and I'm wondering if the most common ones won't have an extra one, and that the rarer ones will have additional items.
And so just for like common questing, I don't think it's necessarily more worthwhile in its current implementation. I think it's more work than what it's worth.
Yeah.
Any
I feel like it
other-
would make more sense if it was like you take the kind of armor that we currently get from quests and stuff and add like maybe 1 or 2 slots
Yeah.
so you can add in additional stuff like, oh, like this doesn't have quite the right stats for my class, like I'd like some more fate so I can do that or whatever, but having all the stats come except for like 1 stat or 2 from the slot seems not as ideal.
In its current implementation, I personally don't want to see it continue, but I can definitely see its potential.
I'll also refer back to my previous viewpoint on it in that I really don't want more of these new systems until they fix allies.
Yeah. Or, just continue to work on older systems. Like, there's so many systems in the game right now. I don't think that they need to introduce this slowly. But if they have really good ideas that are coming down the pipe for this thing that are just not implemented yet, then, maybe it's a net gain. But right now, I don't see the point of essences. Especially when you put it on a scale of developer time.
Right.
All right, let's move on to another new thing that came with Update 14, which is the global chat channel. And so, and so my question for you guys is: do you think that the Slash World channel has proven to be a net positive for the game?
Speaking for Landreval, from the time I've spent on there, which is like maybe a couple of hours for every other day, it's mostly fine. It's not hugely bustling, at least not the times I've been playing, which is going to differ from a lot of other people. But it seems mostly civil. You do get the occasional argument about anything. Politics, as usual. But yeah, it seems like pretty much the same as Landfall GLFFF, but obviously people are automatically put into it, and I think a lot of people just tune it out anyway. So yeah, I don't think it's been a huge net positive for the game so much. I just think it's sort of something that should have been there from the beginning.
I've actually had a surprising. I thought Landreval would be the world chat that would be better, but I actually had to turn off Landreval world channel because people would just not stop talking about like real world politics whenever I was in game, so I had to turn it off. And I've actually had fewer problems on Winfola's world channel. They at least talk about just LOTRO and look for groups and stuff.
Yeah,
Which I was surprised about,
I've had the same problem on Landerville as well.
Yeah.
And I know on Brandywine and some other servers that I've visited on for a little bit, it's a crazy world channel out there. I'll tell you that. I'd say on those servers it's not a net positive, but I don't know. Do you think that this is a net positive? Is it good to have a place for people to chat in game about things that are outside the game, or just general world chat?
I mean, I think it's good to have a officially recognized and supported world chat, but I don't think it's a good idea to be connected to it all the time. Personally, I think, join it if you just need to have like a little something on your screen going to pass time while you're DDing or something. But otherwise, I don't recommend it.
I think
it's just.
Oh, sorry. I just always created a new tab for it and just put it in a new tab, and then I can tab over in there if I want to see it. That's what I do with GLFF too. So that way I just don't have to see all the idiocracy if I don't want to see it.
I guess I just I've been turning it off, so I haven't been seeing much of what's been going on there.
Yeah, I turned it off after 2 weeks or however long it was, so not too long ago, and I don't think I'll turn it back on anytime soon. On Landville, at least. It definitely makes it distracting to go through a playthrough with world chat on.
Yeah, because I like to have general with information that's going on in the game, and world chat just keeps that from happening.
Yeah, I don't even have world chat in my social panel, but I do think that it is a net positive for the game. I just don't necessarily think it should be turned on default. But I don't know. Because I created a new character with this in place, and it is on default for new characters as well. It's not just for existing ones that get it added on. Alright, so let's move on to endgame. And there are two different types of endgame type things with this update. The first one is the solo endgame, which I have not done because it didn't sound very interesting to me, but Atheros and some others have gone in and experienced it. So what are your thoughts on the solo endgame content this time around with Update 14?
It's kind of weird. The way it's set up, it's kind of even more complicated than the previous ones they've done in that there's
That's an
sort of
understatement.
these barterable coins you get from completing certain quests that you can trade with other players for rep in these like 4 or 5 other rep factions, and it's a weird setup they have. I do like that you can trade the coins across, that you can either I think trade or barter with certain people to get items, or you can consume them to get rep. It's good for that sense, at least, that you can either put them all on one character if you have alts that are all near the level cap, or you can, or at the level cap, I should say, or you can just trade with other players naturally. But yeah, the setup is weird. The actual quests are actually quite. Well, I found them generally entertaining. There's, I think, 2 sets that take you to those 2 islands off the coast of Belfalas. One is like the large one to the west, and then one's that smaller one. The large one's actually even bigger when I was on it than I thought. It's actually about the size of the peninsula of Dol Amroth in general.
Wow.
There isn't too much to it. There's this sort of like ruin in the middle with crows around it and stuff like that. But there was a quite interesting quirk to it in that the Corsairs there would actually fight the creatures. They would actually fight and kill each other, which was, I think, quite pretty much unique in the
And
open landscape.
here's a question I have for you about that. Is this a precursor to something like Osgiliath?
It could be. I honestly I can't remember ever using this sort of setup before. I know in this context of the story, it was because the Corsairs were hunting animals, but I wouldn't put it past them having some sort of kind of Osgiliath-ish type thing. Although they have that in the sort of thing before with, firstly with what's it called?
Evan
Anubis,
Dim? Yep.
and also with that hill in Dunland.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they might be testing some sort of thing there. But yeah, the setup is, I think, as I said, the setup is weird, but I think I've played with it a bit, and aside from the very annoying fishing quests I can't figure out, it's it kept me fairly busy doing them.
Well, the one that got me was when I did the quest where you go out on the maneuvers and you come back and the city was taken.
Oh yeah, I thought that was kind of strange. Like this whole
That-
big city, they somehow managed to invade while you were gone. It's
Yeah, and so the whole thing just seemed rather silly in what it was doing. And then you have to decide, all right, which area would you like to rescue? And of course, you can only rescue the one that you have enough rep with,
the library.
which is, of course,
That's
the
the one
library
that
the
you get.
first time you do it.
That quest actually, when you're retaking it, is actually really hard. I found because there's a whole bunch of signatures there, and there's one like a couple of parts where there's like 3 of them almost tied together in aggro.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I have that. That is the last quest on my Gondor video series.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that if I were on any class other than a warden, I would have been ripped. In fact, I came close to getting killed a couple times there. If I didn't have the belly flop, and never surrender, I would not have made it through.
It's one of the few cases in recent memory where I've actually died and had to rethink my approach to that engagement. That's how hard that area is, I found.
Yeah.
Even inside the library, there's a lot of mobs in there, and they patrol around, so you can end up with like 3 or 4 groups all on you at once very quickly.
Do you think it's good that we have a harder place, or?
I think it's good, but I mean, what I consider challenging, other people consider freaking impossible, and others consider complete face rolls. So it's hard to say on that.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Now, the thing I had about that is the first time I attempted to do that quest, I accidentally went into the wrong gate. And of course, it wouldn't let you into the wrong gate, and I got completely lost. I had no idea what was going on. I was hitting walls all over the place, and I had to leave the instance. And it says, "Sorry, you have to come back in another 18 hours."
Is that the voice they used?
That's definitely
Well-
the voice they used.
Yep.
But yeah, the end game is it's dailies again. I know a lot of people don't like them. I'm not even too fond of them myself. But I mean, if it's something you just do every so often, I suppose it's doable. Actually, the additional thing to mention is the server unlocks, which will unlock the city on the west of the Pass of the Dead, and also a little cave area place in, I think, south of Dol Amroth. Those will eventually be unlocked when people hand in tokens from completing the quests for the solo end game. And I think those unlock more item rewards of some kind. I think Second Ages you can just buy straight up when you get that unlocked. So that's an interesting thing that they're bringing back more server unlock since the Boundless Bounty event.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the solo endgame?
No, because I need to breathe.
And I've only had, and I haven't gone very far beyond the point where you unlock the library and do the instance I just talked about.
Yeah, I just
Alright.
hit level 100 last night, so I haven't been able to do it yet.
And I don't have any plans on hitting 100 before update 15. Alright, so what are your thoughts on the Tarling's Crown group area? It's been said that this is one of the hardest group areas that we've had on the landscape ever, I believe. So what are your guys' thoughts on the new Tarling's Crown area?
It is.
Have any of us been in it?
I've tried
I
it
have not.
once.
I
in
went
a group
through it.
with 3 burglars, a champion, and I think another champion, and we got wrecked
Yeah,
hard.
it looks pretty hard.
The first pull in that, just on the outside of the camp, and we got destroyed.
Yeah, I saw Strider go through it with a 12-man, and they were still having a pretty hard time going through there. But they did gradually make it through, but they had a lot of people dying throughout that. So it definitely seems more than just a fellowship area. It seems more like a raid area, which I don't think we've ever had a group area like that. But Turbine did say, I think Rowan said this, that they want to make sure that there's no single player that can go through this area. And
I think a Guardian could maybe do it. A Yellow Captain also, but those lines are
Gonna
kind of
try it.
broken. Those lines are kind of broken. I think
Yeah.
aside from those, you probably
Challenge
wouldn't be able to do
accepted.
it.
Alright, any other thoughts on Tarling's Crown? I personally am glad to see it in the game. It's nice to have more options for players and actually
I'm
have
happy
group
to
content.
Yeah, I'm happy to see landscape group content come back. I hear they're doing it for
Mhm.
the next region too. So yeah, I'm glad to see it.
There's so much in the next area.
Mhm.
I don't know how they're going to get it all out, but it'll be interesting to watch. Alright, so we're now moving on into our random category, which is basically single questions about different things in this update. So, what do you guys think about the new music in Western Gondor? Atharos.
I like it.
Or not Atharos.
Why not? He dropped out of the call.
He just dropped out.
Yep, so that's perfect timing on one of his favorite subjects. But Sithris, what do you think about it? If you want to go a little bit more in depth, then you like it.
Well, yeah, I like it, and I know some people have said that they don't like the combat music because they don't hear very much of it, but as a captain, since my combat usually takes a bit longer, I've been able to enjoy the combat music, and I definitely like it, and I'm really glad to get away from the Rohan music. Like, I really liked James Thomas's music, but then in Helm's Deep, they went back to using some more synthetic music, and you can tell that it's synthetic music, and it's not quite as good sounding. And I'm really glad they opted to use some real instruments for Western Gondor. So I am definitely digging it.
Yeah, I listened to Strider play some to get a sense of the music, and It did seem a little bit repetitive to me during the combat, but that's probably because I wasn't playing. Because usually combat music is relatively repetitive in games, and you usually don't notice when
Mhm.
you're playing. So that's probably more to do with it than anything else. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is Update 14 increased the level cap, and with that introduced new skills, perks, and general changes for the classes. Do we like the way this update handled character progression? And let's start with Drac.
You know what? To be totally 100% honest with you, I didn't notice that big a change.
Well, the main thing is the new capstone skills.
I guess I didn't really pay attention to that. So,
What class were you on?
my hunter, of course. That's basically what I've
Yeah,
been.
I think that they didn't get very big capstone changes. I
Apparently
know.
not, because I haven't noticed any difference. So,
I know on my I think they basically everyone got another capstone, and I think on my champion it increased weapon damage depending on if you were, and it did it for if you were single-handed, you got certain buffs, and if you were dual wielding, you got totally other buffs, and it basically gave different purposes for which weapons you want to yield, which made it more viable to be the dual wielding, make arguments for both sides basically. It made it much more viable too. And so I'm assuming that there's probably a place on the forums where people are debating it even more now about which weapon choice is better for the champion. Um, but I do like it. I have noticed a increase in my power because of these. But what do you, Sithrith and Pineleaf, think about these changes?
As a captain, I'm super excited because I'm super OP right now. On Yellow Line. It's not very often that captains get to be OP. Like mounted combat, we were pretty OP, but like not regular combat. So I mean, I'm relishing this opportunity.
The new Ring of Fire is awesome.
Oh yes, yes it is.
That's actually pretty much all I have to say about the changes. They just changed Ring of Fire, and that alone makes it a win.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The only one I remember of them right at the moment, since I haven't gone through all the classes yet, is on the Hunter, where one of the skills, where one of the other capstone causes me to occasionally drop a random trap in the middle of in the middle of the combat. I think I forgot what triggers it, like a parry.
On parry, I believe it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, okay, on a parry. So I have these traps popping up all over the place in the middle of combat. Other than that, I haven't noticed much. The biggest one I noticed was that when I was respecking my Runekeeper after logging in the first time, I had forgotten exactly how I respec before, and I must have either they added many more items to the tree I was on the Runekeeper, or I had forgotten that there are certain things that I didn't take last time because I no longer had the points I needed in order to get the Runestone, the Healing Stone. So I think I had forgotten what I did before because I obviously must not have taken everything, either that or there are more things to purchase this time around. And of course, I'm occasionally missing not having that Healing Stone.
All right, any other comments? Okay, this next question is rather tough, I think. Mostly because we haven't seen much of Update 15. But would you rather Update 14 and 15 have been an expansion, or do you like the way it is being done as updates?
I think expansions can be fine. I mean, there's usually a whole lot of hype leading up to them, a lot of marketing, PR, and generally drumming up excitement. But I think I've been pretty excited for this update when leading up to it coming out, and yeah, I think this setup works. It's kind of different from where they usually do it, but yeah, personally, at least for my own enjoyment, I think it works fine.
Yeah, I definitely think that I like this way better, mostly because as a VIP I get the updates for free, and so it makes it a lot more viable to be a VIP financially. Um, But yeah, I think that I don't know if it'll be a net gain financial wise for Turbine, but I have noticed a ton of people getting back into the game with Update 14 and getting really excited about Gondor and all that stuff. And I wonder if it was an expansion, there might be, something bad that could come with it that it seems like every expansion always has. And that might have cut into their hype a little bit. I don't know, but It'll be interesting, and we'll never know this, but it'd be interesting to find out if they actually made more money if they would have done an expansion or doing it this way. Because it is important for LOTRO to make money, because we like to play it, and we want it to stay around.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to final thoughts. And the first question under here is, were there any secret areas or things that surprised you about Western Gondor? And let's start with Athalos.
Does the elf cave count?
Yes.
It
I was
is
gonna say the
technically
elf
secret.
cave.
Yeah, it's very Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought when
Yeah.
I was going in there. It's
Absolutely.
very Silmarillion the way
It's very
set up.
depressing.
True, that as well.
Can
It's also
I?
actually-
Did I miss something? Like, why does Dorthaneth have a veil on? Did I miss
because
something?
it's cool.
Because
Like, at first when I was
elves.
looking at her, I thought that like my game had bugged out and like it didn't
Yeah, I thought
render
that too when I saw
her
the portrait
polygons
thing.
or something.
I
And
think
then
it's-
I was looking at her and I was like, wait, what?
I think it's just her style. They don't mention the veil in the actual text or anything, so yeah.
I kind
It's-
of hope that they go back to her and explain some more about her later in the epic, because I'm so confused.
Or the whole like Avarim thing in general.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, it's a very cool cave setup though. It's sort of like you can kind of see the Hellion architecture type thing influence, but it's also a little different. And obviously, the fact that it's underground, which I think we haven't had an elf settlement underground yet. In
No, it seems
LOTRO, so.
very. I think that was the depressing thing for me, because it's like you always associate the elves with like all this like beautiful architecture above ground and like all the natural beauty and like the trees and stuff, and so to have them like underground, it just seems really depressing because it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, in Rivendell, there is the rep area is underground.
True. It's not
Well,
as dark
it kind of
there
goes
though as it
through
is.
underground. It's not underground because then you come into the main area and it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
open.
And in
It's
the
not-
intro area, there's that place that's underground for elves.
Well, that's because it got caved in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah,
it's
it's
there.
a lot darker in that cave area of this cave area of Gondor than it is in pretty much any elf settlement.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, partly because it's
Yeah.
underground, but yeah, it just sounds generally more sad.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it is very sad.
I wasn't expecting to find that place.
Yeah, it's definitely a surprise when you come upon it. All right, what is your least favorite part about Update 14 as a whole? Pineleaf.
Least favorite part of Update 14. Well, they addressed my least favorite part because they had broken the skirmish trainer when it came out. But that was fortunately fixed last week. As for anything else, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my mind that I would put down.
All
You know,
right.
that I could say disliked enough in order to call it the least favorite.
Okay, Drac, anything that you didn't like about Update 14 as a whole?
I still have to go back to, I think, light and medium. They need to look at difficulty a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it skews a little on the hard part for lights and mediums.
Yeah, or at least certain
Well,
classes, because I mean, lore masters are pretty overpowered, but I mean, some of the other classes are having a tough time, and even like some lore masters are having a lot of tough time. And I think they need to look at certain builds with the lore master and try to figure out what's going on there. Athalos.
I'm going to go ahead and bring up the XP issue because we haven't actually mentioned that yet on the review, and it probably bears mentioning.
Yeah, but
Because a lot of
Pineleaf
people
made
have had
it
problems
to 100 in like the second area, so I'm wondering.
and a lot of people have had issues of. I think Brax even mentioned only hitting 98
Yeah,
from all the quests in Gondor.
and
So,
I only made it to 99 because of the VIP XP thing.
and I think Pineleaf's a lifetime, isn't he? So he
Mhm.
would
Yeah.
have. You would
He's
have the VIP boost.
Yeah, he still gets the same
Yep.
amount as me, but he probably didn't do it in as many chunks as I
Yeah.
did.
As a premium without those XP boosts, or these that type, I barely made 99, and that was with using about 2 or 3, maybe even 400% XP boost while questing. It was ridiculous. I think the thing that bothers me most though is that it's going to make people think that there's a lack of content, the same way it happened with Rise of Isengard, and I just don't think there is a lack of content. I think it's just simply
I
down to the quests not giving enough XP.
I actually disagree with that. I think that this time it actually is a lack of content. And I think it's just because of the way that they've trimmed out all the like nonsense quests. They just don't have enough XP, and particularly the fact that they don't have as many instances that give the player XP. I think that that's probably the biggest issue because there's not these like huge waves of enemies that you're killing off all at once. Even like the Ringwraith quest, there's only a few enemies that you kill off in that instance. Um, and so I think in general they just don't have those same type of instances where you kill off like all these NPCs and are getting this huge amount of XP. And so there might be like a similar number of quests, but because there's not the same number of enemies you're killing, plus there's not like all the kill quests where you're killing like 20 enemies and things like that, I think that that is why there's not enough XP.
Then they should have changed it so the mob kills gave more XP. What I mean, I don't think they needed to add more quests just for the sake of adding more quests. I think they had a decent amount, or at least a good amount, that was suitable for the zone.
I
They just should have
agree
changed the
for
XP.
the zone, but I don't think that at their current rate of increasing XP, that it was an issue of them not increasing it enough. Otherwise, they would have spoke up about it already, I think, as they did in the
A lot.
past.
They did mention, I think, on one of the live streams that they were going to check up on the XP while they was in beta, but maybe either they felt they didn't need to, or they just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anything comes up about it, but I really do think that it's just because they don't have enough instances, or maybe they were because of the streamlined questing that there just wasn't enough there. I could be wrong though. All right, any other least favorite parts about Update 14 as a whole, Sithrith?
I have one complaint, and it's that the class armor sets for Dalamroth, dumb, some of them. Because, this is important for me. But they did a good job with some of the sets. Like for, I think, Hunter, Runekeeper, and some other sets, they used outfit ideas from Starry Mantle and Cosmetic Lotro, outfit blogs. And so they made the class armor sets based on those, and so it uses armor, cosmetics, and cosmetics from the game that already exists, but they put them together, and so it looks cool because it's like a cohesive outfit. But then there's, I think, 3 classes. I think it's the 3 heavy classes that they did not do this for, and they just used totally random armor pieces, and like the captain, and I think it's the guardian or the champion or something, they just look stupid. It just looks so dumb. And like having them all like standing near each other, like you can tell which are the outfit pieces that were like actually designed and the ones that were just kind of randomly thrown together because, oh, we had to do this, I guess. So that's my complaint.
Alright, mine is actually the Essence system. I think at its current implementation, there's just not... I don't see why they spent time on this system. I really don't. Aside from the fact that maybe it'll save them time at creating armor in the future. If that's the case, then I'm all for it. Giving them more time to do other stuff is always good. But I don't know if it was worth the time that they invested into the system at its current implementation. I don't know. Alright, let's move on. What is your favorite part about Update 14 as a whole? And let's go in reverse order, Sithrit.
I think it's really the side quests are my favorite part because they're just so engaging and interesting.
All
And
right.
yeah.
Just kidding about reverse order. Athelros, what do you think?
Just the fact that we're in Gondor now, having a fresh new
Mm.
storyline, new NPCs, new NPC voices that are much less irritating, I might add.
Some of them.
Yeah,
Well,
but they're repetitive in what they say.
well, that's with any of the voices really, but I find
Yeah.
them generally less irritating than
Gondor
other
needs
ones.
your aid.
Yeah, that's it's fair enough, I guess. But yeah, just the fact that we're in Gondor now, new quest lines, and just questing there with the new music, with the new landscape. I just like being here. It's just nice.
All right, Pine Leaf.
Just nice.
Well, I have 2 points here. One, of course, are the side, as you say. Well, I would say the main plot line, especially Jajax,
Oh yeah, he's pretty
and,
cool.
and that was a really great plot line there. The other point I had is that this, I think, is the first time I've seen a game or representation of pirates where I thought they rigged the ships properly. Because one of my pet peeves is you have these pirates who are doing all this coastal raiding, constantly using square sails, while coastal raiders tend to avoid square sails. And so it's like,
Yeah,
it was
triangles
good
give
Why
to
an
am I not
see.
advantage.
surprised that Pine Leaf knows about this stuff?
It's true. Triangle sails actually are for more coastal type of travel usually. That's why you see sailboats with triangles and stuff like that. Anyway, Pineleaf, what was your other point? Or was that your other point?
No, that was the second point.
All right. Drac, are you back? Okay, apparently not. So my favorite part of Update 14 has to be just the landscape. Dol Amroth is amazing. The first time that you come over the hill to see that, and I just happened to do it when it was at sunset, or maybe it was sunrise. Either way, absolutely amazing. And you see the patrolling ships off in the distance, and just it feels so alive and feels like when you actually go into the city, there's all these NPCs, and yes, there is extra lag, but I'm okay with that as long as it doesn't, break the game. To be able to have a little bit more lag and see the amazing thing that they were able to do in Dol Amroth, and it just gets me really excited for Minas Tirith. I can't wait to see what they are able to do there. And probably will be seeing it at 13 frames per second. All right, that kind of concludes our final thoughts. So now it's on to the scores of what we are giving to Update 14 and Western Gondor as a whole. And let's actually start with Sithrit.
I'm going to give it an A minus.
All right. And I did forget to remind everyone that this is taking into account the cost of this update. It is $7.95 in the store. So it is a paid update unless you're VIP, in which case you get it for free. So I assume your grade still stands that way.
Mhm.
And why do you give it an A minus?
I'm giving it an A minus because I think it's pretty much the best update that we've had to date. However, it's a little on the small side, like quest-wise. There's not that many quests, like we were saying. There's just not. They did a really good job of cutting out the nonsense quests, but then that means that there's just less quests, and people have had problems getting to cap level with the quests. And yeah, so A minus.
All right, Athelros.
I will give it a B plus, kind of for similar reasons that Seth mentioned. It's pretty much most of the stuff they brought in with the update is top quality. The landscape, the quest design, the writing, it's all very good. The ethnicism is kind of meh, but there just isn't much aside from the questing. I don't think that's really with the update to do, and there's no like big hook there. So for that reason, I'm not going to go above B or B plus. So yeah, it's very good. There just isn't a whole lot other than the questing to really go and do.
All right, Draculetta. First of all, what's your favorite part of Update 14 as a whole? And then what's your score?
My favorite part of Update 14 as a whole, I think, would be the story, but not the main story. I like a lot of the side stories. I think the main story is okay. I think it's just a little slow right now. I'm assuming in 15, when we continue on, I think that might pick up. And I'm going to give it a B plus. Basically, for most of the reasons that were mentioned before I rated it. So I guess I don't have to go into anything else.
Okay.
Because everybody stole my ideas.
Pine Leaf.
Sethra stole my idea.
Pine Leaf, what do you think?
A plus.
A plus.
Ooh.
And why?
Because I feel that this has been overall the best update ever. Okay, I'm not too. I guess I've been ignoring the essence system, which I know some people have probably docked off a couple points of that one. But we'll call this just the beginning of it, so we'll see how that goes. And everything else I think was. I know that Ethros felt like he wished that there was something more in there, but I don't think it needed anything more.
All right. So that's a little bit of a competition, it seems, between Pine Leaf and Ethros there. So we'll see how that develops in future episodes of LOTRO Players News. But
this won't be a Sabertooth, don't worry about that.
all right, so now before I give my score, I think this is the point where we guess what everyone else would score. Lillicate did grace us with her letter grade, which is a solid A. Probably just because she was actually able to experience this update at the time it happened, and she seemed to really enjoy everything that happened in it. She did all sorts of creature guides and things like that. Drac, why don't you give a score for Mist?
I will say Mist will give it a B because she'll die a lot.
Okay. And we're
I
not
guess
logging
enjoys
these
dying.
scores, just for the record. We'll find out when she returns if Draculetta was right there. And Atheros, why don't you give a score for Brax?
B, because his name starts with it.
That's
answer.
as good of an answer as you can probably give. No offense to you, just anyone. What I would give for this update, nobody probably cares, but I would actually give it a solid A. And it's because, like Pineleaf said, I really do think that this is the best update that we've had since free-to-play, at the very least. I do, though, think that because of the Essence system spending some of developer time, the way skirmishes were broken, and some other things, because skirmishes were probably more broken than they've been in a long time, just because some people, like, there were some issues with it. All that being said, though, I think that the landscape was absolutely amazing. The story felt very streamlined. The epic was a little bit weaker, but it is the start of a new epic, and really Volume 3 was the only one that had a truly real strong start in Book 1. And so overall, I give it an A, because I think that Turbine did a fantastic job, and I would like to point out that it does seem like this is our highest rated update ever that we've done since I started Update Talks. So that is definitely a good sign for LOTRO and good sign for Turbine. I think they did a great job with this update. I think we can all pretty much agree on that. So hats off to Turbine. All right. Thank you all for listening to this part of the show. And thank you, Pineleaf, for letting me once again take over the show for another review. And back over to you, Pineleaf.
Very well. Thank you, Andang. for donations. Let's give a big thanks to Tobias for his $10 or more donation to LOTRO players. And to help LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the podcasts of LOTRO players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you can donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode depending on the amount. For $5, you will get a mention on the podcast of your choice. For $10 or more, you will get a mention on all of our active podcasts. As for feedback, we do not have any new reviews this week, but we do have a featured comment. Catherine left a comment on episode 56 of LOTRO Players News. I just have to say I look forward to your show every week, and you never disappoint. The chemistry is great. I love the humor. I appreciate all the information, and especially the time you all spend on the podcast and the website. I know it takes you away from playing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for writing into us.
And we also have an email from M.
M.
Yep.
From
Secret
M.
agent.
All right. Cithrus, could you read this?
Okay. Hi, boys and girls. I've been looking for some LOTRO info since I plan to start playing it, and I came across your site. I know I'm only about 6 years late in my adventure, but I'm going to go with it's never too late to try something new, and just join in. You seem like a fun group that knows the game well, and still enjoys it after all this time. I hope you won't mind helping me out by answering a few questions. And M's first question is, which server would you recommend? Personally, I recommend Landreval. I think that's
Landreval.
kind of everybody.
If you like a good player base that's not necessarily too into group content, but it will keep it very mild in language and things like that, and keep it in a type of roleplay environment, Landreval for sure. If you want something more in PvP or grouping, probably Brandywine. There's other servers that focus on other things as well, so it's more shopping around for what you want. But Landreval does seem to be a fairly popular choice.
Yeah, M says that I'm a casual player and I'd like to be part of a helpful, polite, and fun community. And I definitely
That's
think
Landreval.
Landreval. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
like the definition of Landreval, pretty much.
Except
M's
for the
next
World
question is
channel.
except for the World channel. Get rid of that. But which class would you recommend? I know I should focus on a class that suits me best, but here's the thing. I don't want to start out a class and then realize that it's very dull, limited, or overpopulated. I'd like to play a class that constantly develops and requires me to put some mind to it. From what I've gathered so far, Captain, Lore Master, or Warden might be okay, but I really don't have any game time and also don't have much time to try out everything. First of all, I'm going to say I don't recommend Warden as your first character, just because it's going to cost you money. So I'd say try one of the free classes first. Just in
Plus,
case you don't
wardens
like it,
are a
that'll
lot
be
harder
bad.
too.
Yeah,
For
Yeah,
a
wardens,
first
if
class.
you don't have a whole lot of time to play, I don't recommend wardens, because that's the main reason I can't play my warden anymore, because I forget gambits. Like, it's a very interesting class, but not recommended as your first class or as someone who doesn't have a whole lot of time to play. I'm biased, and I'm going to say captain, because that is the class I play. But I think it's good if you don't have a whole lot of time, because it's a very, it can be a very simple class, but it can also be more complex when you get in groups with people. And so I like the captain class.
Tharos, do you want to make an argument for the Lore Master?
I would say that the captain is, or it can be quite complex, or at least have different complex threads. But I'd say it could be maybe a bit slow for a first-time player, at least in terms of the damage it does. So I would say either the Lore Master or the Burglar will be a good choice for something that has you put some thought into things.
Burglar does have some extra difficulty too, as well. I want to point out.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
the stealth aspect is also quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, the stealth
Yeah.
aspect is fun. The lack of ranged ability is a real
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah, Lore Master for the pet aspect too is the thing. So you have that extra thing to manage. So yes, or either Lore Master or Burglar, I would recommend.
Yeah, and just one point to say is that since you did say you want to avoid something that is overpopulated, then in that case, avoid the hunter at all costs, because if there's an
Everybody
overpopulated
plays the
class,
hunter.
it's definitely the hunter.
And the
Players
champion
get
probably
no
too as well.
love. Yeah.
Hunters are a good class, but the thing is, they are such a good class and they're really easy to learn, and so everybody has them. And yeah, I mean, by themselves, like in a vacuum, hunters are great. But yeah, if you don't want a class that's overpopulated, not the hunter.
They are a lot of fun though.
Yes, they are.
All right, so M's next question is XP versus content. I am a Lord of the Rings fan, but I also want a gaming experience. Should I focus more on reaching certain level or follow the storyline will satisfy my gaming needs at any level?
Oh boy,
I'm
that's
referring to I'm referring to group content, finding on-level groups, etc. So thanks for your help.
You won't find on-level groups.
Especially
You
on
won't find
Landable.
on-level groups only
You won't find any.
because yeah, only because people don't do a whole lot of content and grouping in the middle levels. A lot of people these days seem to wait until endgame, unless you're us, in which we do LOTRO players, and then if you're on Landrival and you catch up to us, then yeah, join us and all that
And
stuff.
also it does seem on Landable, because people focus more on roleplay, that sometimes there are people looking for groups in the mid ranges, whereas Brandywine, it does seem to focus more on the end game, but there are people that help out other players there as well to get them to the end game. So it just
And then you
kind
do have
of.
those kins that use the XP to save their for stopping at certain level
Hmm.
caps.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean,
And if you
go ahead, Pineleaf.
do want to be able to get people to level with or something like that, then joining a kin is probably a very good idea,
Hmm.
because without a kin, it's a little harder to find you. Without a kin, it's even harder to find people that are looking for mid-level stuff to do.
And if you don't like a kin, get out of it. There's plenty of other kins out there. Just try and see if you like it
Don't be
and
the
move
weird
on.
person like I was when I started playing, where I thought that like fellowships were like permanent and you were gonna be stuck in it forever and all this stuff. Like you can always leave your fellowships, you can always leave your kin, and then if you end up wanting to go back, you can always join up with your kin again. It's not a big deal, so don't worry about it too much. And I'd say honestly, focus on the story because Lord of the Rings Online is unique among MMOs and that its story is amazing.
Hmm.
So I definitely focus on the story. And I mean, you're gonna level up because leveling is so easy in this game. They just throw XP at you.
Yeah, at the
Except
time,
in West Gondor, apparently.
at the time,
Except in
some
West
of
Gondor, apparently.
at the time, some of the reviewers were actually surprised that Lotro questing actually was like the primary way of leveling up, and so one of their main pluses was if you don't have a lot of time, that can be really good because you don't have to grind in like you do in some of the other MMOs at the time, where they were mostly focused on killing the NPCs, and that's what gave you your XP. Whereas in Lotro, it actually gives you quests, and that's because it definitely seems to focus on the story. So.
So yeah, and then Emma says, "Thanks for the help. I'll be sure to check your site for future or further tips and guides, and stay excellent." We'll try.
We'll try.
Very well. Thank you, Cithrith. And you can contact us at lotroplayers.mymiddleearth@gmail.com. You can also follow us at Twitter, lotroplayers at lotroplayers, Andang at pvmp_andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Cithrith at Cithrith, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Etheros at Etheros, Lilykate at LilyKateBuggins, Mystery at MysteryXOX, and Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles. Lotro Players goes live every week, but we will have different times for our next episode. Normally we go live for Lotro Players Adventures on Saturdays at 5 p.m. server time, but next week, we'll have it instead on August 11th at 8:30 server time, which is the usual time we have Lotro Players News.
And that is a Monday for adventures.
That is a
just so
Monday,
everyone's
the
clear.
Monday after we would normally have our episode. And Lotro Players News, which normally goes live every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. server time, will be broadcast early on Thursday, August 7th at 8:30 p.m. server time, and that server time is United States Eastern Time.
Wait a
can
second,
join-
Pineleaf. Are you saying that there's only 5 days until another LOTRO player's news? Oh, I'm
Yes.
so excited.
So we
That
need
is awesome.
lots of news in these 5 days. And you can join us by going to lotroplayers.com/live and be sure to join us in the YouTube chat. Thank you for listening and watching, and good. This is Pineleaf News. That's all for tonight, and until next time, remember to skirmish responsibly.
Heel Pine Leaf.
Chickens.